What up, what up, what up? Welcome to Believe in Rams, presented by FanDuel. Erin Coscarelli back with you with my co-host, 11-year veteran, Rams Super Bowl champion, our offensive lineman, Rob Havenstein. You've had some time to digest the schedule. You did something kind of cool last night, which was why we were so grateful we were able to even get time with you. You had a cool retirement post-retirement party. Can you elaborate what last night was, who you got to see, who you got to hang out with, how you feeling this morning?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, first off, I'm not feeling too bad. Didn't go too hard. The best thing about the kids is that it really kind of limits your hangover days because you can't really have them because there's no real off days. So took her easy and had a little retirement / birthday / celebration, just kind of get the guys back around. And a lot of the O-line guys who, obviously I spend most of my time with was there. A lot of the staff that I had, grown close with over these past 11 years were there, and just, had a real good turnout. Puka showed up for a little bit before he went to baby duty. So it was good to see him doing his thing, and just kind of chatting with a couple guys. Sean showed up for a little bit, Reggie Scott, that whole staff.
Wow.
So it was good to get there and kind of get my fix of talking shop a little bit, just because I'm not in the building, which is a change for me over the last 11 years.
Yeah, I was going to say, what do you feel like you missed the most? Because you made your announcement, was it February, right? It was like late February. So. And, it's you were the longest tenured Ram on the roster of any of the guys before you retired, 11 years. And obviously there's so much I'm sure you miss. What do you feel like you miss? What do you miss most?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys say it, and I think it holds true. It's just the camaraderie. It's the guys. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the BS that happens behind the doors. And, obviously the work and everything, going to a certain goal is fun, in its own way. But it's the time between the meetings, between the, during lunch and, after work hours have concluded, where you got the, the dumb conversations and the fun stories that pop up. And, I was there for so long. It's always a couple like, hey, you remember this one or, this story? It's like, yeah, no, I remember that one. And so that's kind of what I'm missing most. But I drove there the other day to pick up some orthotics for my ankle, and doing that drive to the facility, it kind of cemented the fact that I didn't want to make that drive until hopefully February. So it was that's what I miss most, but I think retirement is definitely a good look on me.
Yeah, it is. And you're doing a lot of really cool things after retirement. Obviously, you're getting an opportunity to sort of shed some light on what it's actually like inside the building. That's why we're so grateful to get your perspective. I mean, you're just fresh off the field. And like you said, you're hanging out with Sean, you're hanging out with Puka, you're hanging out with, the other thing that's cool about you, Rob, is, and I imagine it to be hard, being a part of that offensive line is a unit in and of itself. It's its own team. I always enjoyed when I was working with the Niners, getting the offensive lineman perspective, because they had the quickest wit. Their jokes were always just like a funny, smart group of guys. So I imagine, just being around them for as long as you were, it's harder than just you're any type of other skill positional player, because you just you operate as a unit. Did you last night, were there any cool moments? I mean, did you guys talk about the schedule? Was there anything that sort of popped up that you thought was kind of like, memorable?
Yeah, I shared some old war stories, and the schedule came up, and obviously there's a lot of primetime games, and so there was a lot of maybe not complaining, but it's just talking about the long waits of Monday night games and Sunday night games and all that, and then there was a big talk actually about the week 11 bye week, which still holds true. I think it's a good time for it, but then if you look at that next game coming back, it's a Wednesday. And so it's like, are you really still getting the same amount of bye week? Technically, maybe, but realistically, no. I'm sure everything still conforms to everything, all the rules and stuff have you, but you're not getting that. hey, you play on, Monday versus the Cardinals. Or Monday. Yeah. Sorry, let me get that real quick. I was looking back at the Australian.
Exactly.
Australian one. I got to turn that one over.
Rob got to check out the Australian day, which obviously it's 17 hours ahead. So slight difference in Pacific time if you're from Los Angeles. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you're playing, is it still the Cardinals? Let me look at that. 10. Yeah. So you're playing the Cardinals, and then all of a sudden you have your bye, and then you're turning around going to home versus Packers, and that's Thanksgiving Eve on a Wednesday. And so it's like, how does that really work out for your timing, your bye week, and everything like that? And does it really affect what Sean has normally done? Is you get the full week off, really reset, especially that late in the season, and kind of reset your body, reset your mind for that second half push. And so I think that kind of throws a little bit of a wrench in there, but. Yeah, so we were sharing some old war stories, and then one of my guys, David Quessenberry, he's a beauty. He I'll show this one off. He took over my locker area, so he spray painted gold a knee brace that I wore on my left knee, and I had the boys sign it. So
brilliant. That's amazing. He gave that to you last night.
Yeah, last night he was that was the knee brace I didn't really wear. I had another one that I wore, so I left that one. I took the old one, or the one I wore, just in case I needed to slap it on for some pickleball or something like that. If the knee started acting up, I could go ahead and brace it up. But yeah, I took it, spray painted it gold, and had some of the guys sign it. And so and honestly, that just kind of speaks to the funniness, the quick-wittedness of the offensive line room, because who else would think to do that,
Yeah, I love it. And, and honestly, what's cool about it is it takes a moment that was, you having to wear a knee brace and kind of making it fun, making it funny and having levity, which is you got to, I imagine, in life. And when you're playing football and you're winning and you're losing. And so that's really cool that he sort of memorialized your knee brace.
That was cool. I told him I was going to hang it up in front of the gym in my house and kind of do like a Notre Dame touch the sign type thing every time I walk in there. So it's going to be fun.
Amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, so you got a chance to hang out with your teammates, your coach last night. And one of the things that I imagine, like you said, that really was the top of my thought process was 7 primetime games. And that means, a few different things to me. When you see primetime games, and I want to say, do you remember how many you guys had last year? Obviously not that many. It was a lot. It was still a lot. You guys had a Thursday night game, obviously, against Seattle. And then I forget who you guys played, but I mean, a Sunday night, a Monday, there were a handful of games that obviously, and maybe even being flexed, that the NFL thought, hey, people want to know what the Rams are doing. And I posted on Instagram, I'm like, not that this is like a clap back to the Seahawks, but I'm like, for some reason, they think the Rams on television perform better than the Seahawks. And I'm not biased because I'm from LA, but I think I kind of agree. There's something about the Rams that just this season seem to provide an electric persona. And the other thing that I'm curious to get your take on, according to FanDuel Sportsbook, the Rams are actually favored by 2.5 against the Niners in Melbourne. So when you think about that, they're actually, they're saying, hey, we think that this team is not only the best team to win the Super Bowl per FanDuel, but also will win against Melbourne. Why do you think, before we sort of get into the more nuanced moments of the schedule, do you think that the Rams, ahead of the Seahawks, are projected to win the Super Bowl? Obviously, way too early to actually talk about any speculation, but according to them, they think that their roster is number one.
Yeah, it's obviously it's close. The Seahawks obviously won last year, but it's as there's a new year, it's new everything. You can't really take momentum into a new season just because it's going to be such a new team with, like, there's always turnover and coaches and players, and so guys still have the experience. But I've never been a big believer in let's continue. Let's take some of the momentum from last season and bring it in, just because the time is just too long. There's different guys in different positions, but with Matthew coming back and, being the reigning MVP, obviously he's still himself. And so, he can do whatever he wants with the football. When you talk about exciting football, that's what I think of. I think of a Devontae Adams. I think of a Puka Nacua, Matthew Stafford, getting out there and just kind of, must see TV. And I'm excited to watch it as a fan as much as anyone. But obviously they think the Rams are going to do well. We all hope and think the Rams are going to do well. And I think everyone in that building has the same belief as FanDuel would have, is that, the expectation is to go earn the right to go win every single game, that you lace the cleats up and put the pads on.
Yeah, and largely the roster hasn't changed dramatically, aside from you not being there. But most of the key players are coming back, and essentially they've added a lot of firepower to the secondary with McDuffie and Watson and such. So when you take a look at that week one, and then you see in between week one and week two, the Rams come back and they don't play again until September 21st, that Monday night against the Giants, maybe a more perceived easier team. But you're getting 11 days in between. So this is a two-parter for you. You had the second most traveled air miles. We talked about this yesterday. Among any of the other NFL teams, obviously the tax you kind of pay when you're a West Coast team. When you're traveling, because you guys went from Baltimore, you stayed over there, and then you went to London, and then you came back, that's a large amount of traveling. What does Reggie Scott sort of have you guys do? And what do you anticipate him doing in that 11-day period? And especially when you guys are on a plane flying, whatever it is, 13 hours down under.
Man, it seems to change almost every year about what the actual protocol is going to be. And I think going to Melbourne is going to be a little different, just because I don't think there's science really, back. Teams haven't done that in the past. So you can't just draw from other NFL teams. They're going to have to kind of look at other studies and things like that. But generally, it's going to be about the same. With the long flight, you're going to basically try to keep your blood moving on the plane. Try not to get
no sitting down. Is that a thing? Or
no, they'll kind of give you examples and not expectations, but guidelines of all right, hey, sleep here, don't sleep here, try to stay awake. That was the big thing about flying from Baltimore to London, was don't fall asleep or on the plane. Try to stay awake. And then, you'll get your sleep really good the night before. Cause I want to say, we went super late last year over to London. So that was the science that they were kind of preaching to us, was don't fall asleep. We'll get there, we'll do our thing, do a little walkthrough. And then when it's time before the game, you'll be able to fall asleep. Guys won't be up till 4 a.m. and whatnot, and then get, 3, 4, 5 hours before the game. It's you're going to want to pass out because you haven't slept in so long. And so that's kind of the thought behind that. But going to Melbourne, I think it's going to be, it's just such a long flight. So I don't really know exactly what they're going to have to do, but it's definitely going to be pushing hydration. I'm sure it's going to be some sort of hey, get up, move around, when you're not sleeping, get the legs working. I don't think anyone's going to be hitting any high knees down the aisle, but getting up, moving around, doing a little, couple light stretches, and just kind of keep everything flowing and feeling good. And then whenever they say to sleep, get your sleep, then stay up when they're trying to get you to stay up. And this is going to be pushed from now until it happens. And so it's something that they're going to get on top of early and often, just so it's not a surprise and everyone kind of has an idea of and they're going to explain why too. That's the biggest thing about, what Reggie and his crew does, is whether you care or not, they're going to let you know why we're doing things. And that's a big thing that Sean has. It's it's not my way or the highway. It's I want you to do it this way because of X. And so that's one of the many things that's great about the Rams. But, and then especially coming back from that, getting a little bit of that Monday Night Football game versus the Giants. So you get a little bit more time off to kind of cycle that flight back around. And it's obviously earlier in the season, so it's historically, the Giants haven't done great over the last couple of years, but they got a lot of young players. So early in the season, it could be a tale of two different teams. So, but being on Monday night does give you that extra day of what would be recovery.
Fascinating. Here with Rob Havenstein, Rams Super Bowl champ, here to break down the 2026 Rams schedule. They also had a really cool schedule release video, an ode to Napoleon Dynamite. Have you seen the movie? Did you see the video? What was your thoughts on the Rams schedule release video?
Yeah, no, it took me a second to kind of realize what they were doing. And then
same.
I haven't seen that movie in so long, I think I maybe watched it twice, but once I kind of got what they were doing, I was like, okay, this makes a ton of sense. And it's actually pretty funny. The Rams, they do a great job with all their marketing. So I kind of like the direction they took it in, and, especially some of the, subtle jabs in there. And, that's kind of the funny thing to watch all the other teams and kind of see who they're jabbing and who they're, poking fun at.
I know the Chargers always get a lot of credit for their social team schedule release, and they do a great job. But I don't know if you caught, they got a certificate when, that's what I love the most. And I read something about the social teams don't actually know the order. They have to kind of pre-script a concept and then figure it out. So you can kind of tell, it's produced, but it's very loose. And when you hear the strategy and how little amount of time the NFL actually gives the social teams to, they want to prevent leaks as much as possible. But the Chargers game, was a subtle jab because it was a certificate of achievement for like best social team. But then they had the Super Bowl rings, right? Yeah. So like they did so those are very clever. I mean, some went real dark and posted some dynamics that, I'm not even remotely talking about that are happening in the NFL. But it is an opportunity that I think that the NFL does such a great job of like maintaining cultural relevance during the off season. They win the off season, league of the year, league of the century. I mean, they just do such a good job in the schedule release and the even Rampage doing the tether ball at the end. I was like, yeah, that's awesome. I used to play that too. And obviously that was a Napoleon Dynamite. So, okay, cool. Well, listen, so then we go from the Rams they've got an 11-day break. You just mentioned that Monday night, a little bit, more of an opportunity to rest. And then it's interesting because we were speaking with Rob yesterday, immediately with the schedule kind of coming out, and you gave us your quick hits, which as a player, it doesn't matter how in depth. It's interesting just to get your perspective on that. But you said the back end, and now kind of looking at the schedule again, this also feels like an intimidating part. I will say the good part, if I were to, just initially look at it, you're getting Philly, but you're getting Philly in October as opposed to a Philly in a later, later time of year. But that still feels like a pretty intense stretch because you've got Sunday night in Denver, and then you've got Philly on the road, and then you've got wait real quick before we get into this, your anticipation of how long you think Sean McVay will stay in Melbourne.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Yeah,
I really don't. I mean, it would just be a complete guess. I would say that they're there. Maybe leave after Thursday. No, because it's a weird time. I would say that they're there 3-4 days before. And I'd say if they're being aggressive 2-3 days before, just to. Sorry, I'm trying to recollect that. I want to say they were saying in order to kind of acclimate to a new time period. I can't remember exactly what they said. I want to say it was like 5 days or a week or something like that. So that's why they went so late for London. But being a week out there and, trying to rely on other people's fields and just not having your stuff. So if I'm going to guess, I'm going to say 4 days before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Game.
I think that, and then they leave right after the game.
Right.
Obviously. So because you guys only spent like less than 48 hours in London, is that right? Or it was just it was in and out and by design.
Like 24.
Yeah. Oh, maybe it was 24. Yeah.
Yeah,
maybe
it was light.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's by design, obviously, because especially when you're, traveling as much as the Rams have to, as they did last year and this year, it is so important to stay on, a type of schedule as an athlete, a pro athlete should. So, okay, that's interesting. 3 or 4 days in Melbourne. Okay. So then now let's keep going. So weeks 3, weeks 4, and then you've got a home game now again, Monday night against the Bills. When I look at this, I still feel like this is just as, of course, the back end was Seattle, but this feels like a challenging stretch. What do you make about the first half before the bye week? What stands out to you there, and what seems like a sort of under the radar tough game or two?
Yeah, no, I think you said it pretty much right on the head. Going weeks 3 through 5, I mean, that's a tough stretch. You go at Denver, so you got to deal with the altitude. That's a thing. Luckily, it's not going to be cold, or it'll be chilly, whatever Denver in September is, but it's not going to be, like you said, December or anything. We got to worry about snow and freezing temperatures. Same thing with Philly. And then you come home on a Monday night versus a Buffalo Bills team. That's a very important stretch of football right there. And it's especially being so early, it kind of can set you up for a really good season, or can cause some potential growing pains depending on how the games go. But yeah, no, that's a tough stretch, and it kind of seems that's the theme of this schedule release, and actually kind of diving into it. But those, weeks 3 through 5 are going to be, locked in, and having them come so early, because week 3, you go through training camp, and back when I played with the Rams, it was we're not going live. We're not tackling to the ground. And so it's, trying to get your work in without beating your body up. And so maybe those first couple of weeks, you're still trying to kind of get the groove of mid-season form. Obviously, I'm not a tackler. So all my stuff was full speed, just, without the cuts and all that. But, cutting's not a huge part of the game anyways. But especially for the defensive side of the ball, guys who maybe aren't used to going to the ground and tackling and, really making those open field plays and getting guys down, that's always been maybe a bit of shaking the rust off those first couple of weeks. So hopefully you can get that done weeks 1 and 2. And then, by the time you hit week 3, you're in mid-season form. But it's definitely something to think about.
Wow. Really interesting perspective. Yeah. And then, you go, you've got you got some extra Sundays, and then you have the bye week, which you said a good time. You don't want it too late. You don't want it too early. Week 11 feels like a nice sort of middle of the season for you. And then what about after the bye week? So weeks 12 through weeks 18, also not so easy.
No, not at all. That's a heck of a stretch right there. I was trying to find the one where it's like, obviously you can't relax in the season just because, those are the games that sneak up on you. But shoot, even when you talk about, week 6 through 10, it's, you're looking at teams that, obviously the Chargers had success last year. The Commanders have been a playoff team, a couple here and there, but, historically not, super dominant. But, there's a stretch there where it's like teams who, you look at that, and if you're a Lay fan, like, oh, easy, we're going to, win. And like, you don't want to call them trap games, but that middle chunk could be the most important part, because it's like you can't relax in this league because you will get humility is only a week away. Sean would always say that all the time, and that's something I truly believe into my heart. And so if you can stay committed and focused through that, and obviously you're still playing the NFL, it's hard, but kind of get through that stretch, then you get your bye. But we were just talking about that. You have your bye week, but then you go Thanksgiving Eve on a Wednesday, which is not normal, and it can throw off what historically has been the bye week. And so it's same thing you said about scheduling and having routines. The NFL and at least, especially for me when I play, is like I wanted a routine. I wanted to wake up and kind of do the same thing every single week because I knew what was required of me. I've done it for a long time. And then kind of when things change a little bit, it just maybe throws a wrench in it a little bit. We got to kind of tighten up the mentality a little bit. But, routine is such a big thing in the NFL. And so when you have a Wednesday night game coming off a bye week, it's like, how does that work on a practice schedule? Most guys are, when the schedule is released, most guys are like, all right, when's our bye? Like, they're not looking at who we're playing. They're looking at when the bye week is first. Just like, all right, is it a good bye week? Is it a bad bye week? And it's like, all right, week 11, great. Woo. And then you're like, oh, wait, we play Wednesday the next day. And so that's something that's going to need to be navigated around and how that happens.
Yeah, because it's Sunday. And then normally the bye week would allow for you to have how many more days, essentially? Well, again, don't ask me to do math over on this show.
Yeah, 4 days, 5 days potentially.
Yeah.
So next week.
Yeah. That's so interesting to get your glimpse and also, I mean, I took a note. It's like NFL players love routine. The schedule is really anything but routine. There's so many firsts that are being practiced on this team this year. Going to Melbourne, this Wednesday game, all of these sort of intricacies of navigating this of the schedule of the season. And, when let's say who's the one that is tasked with looking at the schedule and just kind of having to sort of strategize the mental, physical element, aside from, of course, Sean McVay when it comes to the football preparation. Because I remember Sean McVay, I remember coach, and maybe it was also because he had a baby on Monday, but that game was a Thursday night game. And I was interviewing some of the guys and they, I want to say, who was it? I can't remember if it was the linebacker. Anyway, they didn't seem to like the short turnaround so much on a Thursday night. And I think even maybe coach said that as well. Who's looking at this schedule and sort of having to do almost like this and who's tasked with going, okay, this is the routine. It's anything but routine, but buckle up.
I think it's a collection of people. I think a Reggie Scott's going to get in there and, put his input on travel and, how to keep guys fresh. Sean's obviously going to look at it. And Sean's got people he relies on, within the team, and just kind of rely on maybe some of the other experience of the other coaches who's like, hey, back in 2018 we did this, and so it worked out or it didn't work out. And so I think it's more of a brain trust rather than one specific person. But there's going to be lots of eyes on it, lots of conversations about how to find a routine in an unusually unroutine schedule.
Yeah. I mean, that seems to be the theme. Okay. Just kind of like finalizing the last bit of the schedule. Again, you have back-to-back games against the Packers and the Chiefs. And, both of those are primetime games. And then you've got to deal with the 49ers at Levi Stadium. I mean, even the second half is just really gauntlet. I was talking yesterday with a colleague about, do I see a trap game? And I'm like, I guess the trap game I would say, or the game I would say, don't take lightly, which was also a NFC South opponent last year. You guys lost to the Falcons and the Panthers, which seemed like a little bit of a layup. But again, you were going through a lot of challenging moments that I think the team may have wanted to see, hey, like this won't be as hard. I don't know how you guys think of those things, but when I think of Tampa Bay, you guys are going to be on the road and then you face the Seahawks again. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's trying to look at a specific trap game. It's it's tough because I think that's going to fall more to what I was saying, weeks 6 through 10. The one thing I will say is that even though you do have that Wednesday night game with the Packers, you're then turning around and that's your Thursday night game. So your short week isn't as short. So it's almost a Sunday to Sunday. So that kind of works out in favor. And then you kind of get your little mini bye week after the Thursday night game, because then you're playing, Sunday at San Fran. And, with those being, divisional games, there's a lot of people with a lot of experience having to go play in those arenas in San Fran, in Seattle, at Arizona. And so there's a lot of familiarity there. And so it's not as bad. The big one, I would say, just going down, and then, you got, Dallas, and then at Seattle, but then you got to fly to Tampa Bay on week 17. And that's a long flight. And so, talking about more long flights, and, it's week 17, guys are beat up and bruised, and hopefully, trying to head into the playoffs the right time. And so I think that could be a huge one. And then obviously coming back with, week 18 with Seattle is going to be a dogfight. But yeah, there's not much here I see where it's like, hey, this is, got it locked up. We're there. And so it's going to be interesting. It definitely poses a lot of challenges and a lot of things to work out, but it's going to come down to, honestly, mental toughness, and, just take things in stride and one day at a time, and let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. I mean, and that's really what was the biggest takeaway for me last season when I was watching you guys just navigate all kinds of crazy things. Coach didn't make your Arizona flight when you're playing the Cardinals because he was sick, and, Mike LaFleur might have needed to be the play caller. All these things were going on. You had the baby, then they go to Seattle, they end up losing. I'm like, and I'm like, you guys are just, it is an incredible phenomenon, the battle, if you will. So I'm glad you had the best time at your retirement party. You so deserve it, Rob. You're such a a leader. I mean, people just speak so highly of you, and I'm sure miss you dearly in that will miss you dearly in that locker room. So much more to talk about. I feel like we went over it. Thank you for your time, and let's just keep, talking about this stuff, because I think it's interesting what you guys, had to go through, and this is not going to be an easy schedule. That's for sure.
Not at all. Not at all. But that's the NFL. That's what you sign up for.
And that's why it's the most popular sport in the country. All right. Well, that'll do it for Rob and I Believe in Rams, presented by FanDuel. I do want to ask for you guys. I never say this, and I need to be better about it. Don't forget to hit subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, write a review. Rob and I would love and appreciate that. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, that's a wrap. Schedule release. Thank you again, Rob. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.